So let's give it up for Dr. Baden U'Ren.
Thanks, James. How good is this? It's a little thin because of the lines, but obviously this lot is the pumped up crew. These are the ones that really want to be here. So it's my absolute pleasure to be here. And I want to share with you one of my missions in life. And one of my missions in life is to embed entrepreneurship education into our national curriculum such that every single Australian worker, their individual entrepreneurial capability is lifted up to the next level. If we want to be an innovative economy, one of the major contributors to an innovation economy is the labour force. And we need that labour force, that general workforce, to have entrepreneurial capability if we're indeed going to be a first world nation. We are in the midst of the fourth industrial revolution. The fourth industrial revolution is a process where technology is starting to be embedded into systems and into society and even into biology. You're going to hear some talks over the next couple of days that will blow your mind as to where things are going. We've got AI and machine learning and nanotech and quantum computing that are actually changing our understanding of what is actually capable and the way in which we can actually do that. It's making that change, and with change comes uncertainty. Uncertainty is a state of being where you're not exactly sure how you're going to make a decision or how you're going to act in a particular way. Yeah? So what we want to do in times such as these, when there's uncertainty abounds, the rules on which our society runs tend to not perhaps work the way we ordinarily saw that they did. It can be as simple as 1 + 1 doesn't necessarily equal 2, or maybe I comes after E, yeah, even if it's before C, you know? There are these rules that we understand to be, but they don't necessarily play out the way that we have it. So we're in a situation where we've got this uncertainty abounds, and when we try and understand how to be able to cope with uncertainty, we can look to the past. I'm going to put a call out to anyone who knows who this particular gentleman is. He's not a modern day entrepreneur. Dr. Castell knows who I'm talking about here. This is Joseph Schumpeter, and he wrote in the early 1940s about who the entrepreneur was and the entrepreneur's role in an economy. And the entrepreneur's role is the creative, destructive force. It's the role within an economy that changes the way business occurs. And a colleague of his at the time, Frank Knight, coined this term referred to as Knightian uncertainty. And the content here was that entrepreneurs were not just lucky risk takers. So this view of entrepreneurs take a risk and sometimes they're lucky and then they go forward. No, that's not the case at all. In fact, entrepreneurs have this ability, this heuristic, this understanding of how to deal with uncertainty that gives them an unfair advantage when things are not known. So when there's change abounds and you put an entrepreneur next to a non-entrepreneur, the entrepreneur will come up on top systemically. So if this is the case, we need to kind of understand what this entrepreneurial method is if we want to build it within our economy. So there's two components. You can think of it as skills and mindset. And in the academic space, we talk about disciplinary skills and general capabilities, yeah? So entrepreneurial knowledge consists of things like opportunity recognition and sales and collaboration and building networks. They're the types of skills that entrepreneurs tend to put forward. And that's a required component of the entrepreneurial method, but it's not the only component. It needs to be complemented by a method, a heuristic, a way of thinking. And these are the general competencies, and it's what we refer to as entrepreneurial self-efficacy. So I'm going to leave that word in your head, entrepreneurial self-efficacy. And what it refers to is the inner belief within the entrepreneur that they have the capability to be able to achieve the tasks that are needed to launch an entrepreneurial venture. It's that inner drive, that inner belief. Often it comes out in guts and determination and persistence in the face of adversity. You know, it's that inner drive and inner belief that they will go forward and succeed that drives across. So if we have it that little place, we kind of see that it plays into this dialogue that's sitting around the future of work at the moment. All this, you know, computers are going to take over the world, they're going to replace our jobs. Anything that's going to be automated or can be automated will be automated, which we see playing out. IBM Watson and AI, Natalie Renz, who's talking later after lunch, is going to be talking about that, is is enabling automation. So we see IBM Watson replacing roles in the tax and legal industry. We see a great Australian company, Rio Tinto, having an entire mine that has autonomous trucks that's running it with no human intervention on the actual trucks. So it's occurring, right? But when we look to the work that's done from the World Economic Forum and the Institute for the Future, the types of skills, and I'm using skills loosely here because that's what's used in this work, talks about things like emotional intelligence and creativity and design mindset and transdisciplinarity, the ability to be able to work across disciplines, not just a discipline expert like an accountant or a finance person. I did an undergrad in economics and financing, majoring in quant. Like I was designed to be a numbers person, right? Transdisciplinarity, they're these, dare I say it, entrepreneurial skills, yeah, that we see that are coming out. And for me, I think that this is a clear link into being able to see, well, if this is the entrepreneurial mindset and this is the way we need to develop these different skills, how can we embed that systemically so the entire workforce has these skills in place? Yeah? How can we see that can be? So whenever you're doing something new, you might look to some exemplars. And for example, my wife and I have just been through a program called the Peak Persona program. Any Peak Persona people here? Put your hands up. Yep, there's a few of us, including the founder. Yeah. So this is a program that's designed to enable founders to be at their optimum level of performance. It consists of a series of daily routines and embedded behaviours that's designed to enable entrepreneurs to be at their peak when they need to be at their peak, right? And for the first time, we've started to measure how an intervention such as an educational type program can have on building entrepreneurial self-efficacy in the people that run through the program. Big asterisk here, because I am an academic and I'm representing a university, none of this is statistically significant, yeah? It's early days. We don't have enough nodes to be able to make any claims, but the early response is that this program is next level on delivering on entrepreneurial self-efficacy. I've done my asterisk. Almost 25% across the board increase in entrepreneurial self-efficacy of the people who are running through this program. And I'm happy to stand up and say that because for me it's just a no-brainer. Yes, we can wait until we've got the evidence and it satisfies the journal, requirements. But this program is delivering on it, and it's delivering in a different way. It's very experiential. If we look to another program that's based out of here in Queensland, it's called the Venturer program. It's run out of the Office of the Chief Entrepreneur, founded by Mark Salby, a legend in this space, continued on by Steve Baxter. And what the Venturer program does, it's actually run by Ben Southall, who won the best job in the world, that campaign that was run by Tourism Australia back in 2009. He's an unbelievable fella. So what it does is it collects a group of people and it gives them the space to have a shared experience, a set of shared experiences that challenge them mentally, that challenge them physically, that challenge them socially, to take them out of their comfort zone. And what we find is some of the outcome, quick show of hands, Venturer alumni. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's a few of you in here, awesome. What we find is that there are these entrepreneurial skills that are developed through these experiences that are being delivered that ordinarily you might not see in schools. Now, I'm going to make this claim that things aren't happening in schools, and it's false because there are some unbelievable programs running in independent schools, independent state schools, yeah? So it does exist, but it doesn't happen systemically. It doesn't touch everybody, no matter what their role in life is be. So I want to invite Emma up. Emma's a graduate from Venture Program number 3, and she's going to stand quite close to me. A, because she's my student and we've got a nice relationship, but B, because we need the microphone to be nice and close, yeah? But in your own words, can you tell us what the outcome of the Venture program was for you?
For me, there were 2 key takeaways. The first one being that we're all more capable than we actually think we are. And I think that in this day and age, it's so common for failure not to be celebrated, and I think it is something that needs to be celebrated because you can learn a lot about yourself and also about your surroundings from failures. And the second key takeaway for me was that good things can come out of tough conversations. So whilst venture was physically challenging, it was also emotionally challenging and forced us to break out of social groups and kind of mix with people that we ordinarily wouldn't be exposed to. And there were some really tough questions asked, and while they may have triggered an emotional response, I definitely learned a lot about myself and about other people from those tough conversations.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma. Yeah, cheers. Big round for Emma. So we heard messages of self-confidence. You might, self-efficacy, yeah? You might think of deepening connections and building networks and having tough conversations. You might be thinking about those entrepreneurial knowledge that is being built. These are single little programs that are happening outside of the traditional system that educates us. Emma's lucky. She was chosen to go onto this program. She had the opportunity, but it's not everybody. Yeah, it's the Emmas and Lorenas of the world that we put on the last program, so through Bond University's program. So my view is that there exist some exemplars, and what we need to do is we need to take the best parts of that and embed them into the way in which our system runs. It brings me to a personal story, because this concept of resilience and persistence being driven by self-efficacy, I'm co-founder of a company called Blockgrain, and Blockgrain is a platform that integrates and brings transparency and efficiency into the grain supply chain, potentially any other spaces as well. But I co-founded it with with two of my students about 4 years ago, and the driving force behind Blockgrain is Cale Dittrich. He's fifth-generation wheat farmer, and he knew what the problem was. Initially, it was farmers losing margin, I'm using nice words here, losing margin to the value chain because they were technologically disadvantaged. And our first device was actually a little IoT device that was measuring protein and moisture within grain kernels, because grain is sold on protein level, right? But this has been a 4-year journey, and we've transitioned from an IoT device into an initial web-based platform, and all the while, Cale's been working a design job on the side while driving the business. And we had a small lick of money from one of my other students to start with that sustained us. We've been going through the R&D tax incentive grants to get some money back in that challenge. We were lucky enough to get an Ignite Ideas grant. So but it's been a long road, and we've pivoted about 7 times to where we are today. And we're in the midst of an ICO, and hopefully things might be going really, really well. But this resilience and self-belief, when I look at Cale, who is driving this business, that's what's driving the success of this business. He has some skills, yes, but because of his particular background and the fact that he grew up on farm and he started and he worked his own business, he developed those entrepreneurial self-efficacy skills. The challenge is we can't just leave that up to chance. We can't just leave it up to chance that Emma gets to go on venture program and Cale does it because of what family comes into. If we're in a situation where we want our entire workforce, we want the Australian economy to be innovative, we need the labour force to be entrepreneurial. And for me, that just needs to be developed through our education system. It's the one way that we can touch every single Australian, and it'll take time. It's a long-term play. This isn't a quick fix for the next 5 years. There's a whole bunch of retraining and reskilling that needs to happen at later years, for people who are 40 that want to get into this space. But the long-term, systemic, strategic play is developing entrepreneurial knowledge and entrepreneurial self-efficacy in our education system. The next talker is an absolute legend called Eben Escott. And I'm putting him up here because what we need in Australia is an army of Ebens. That's what we need. He's got a PhD in software engineering. He's unbelievably technically talented. But as we know in the HR space where we're looking for T-shaped employees, he's got an ability to sell. He's got an ability to build networks, to relate to people. He's got an eye for opportunity. And he's got, probably because of his own personal background, this inner grit and determination to just achieve. Yeah? And it's happened because he's Eben. And because of his background, yeah? But what we need is an education system that builds I think there's 3 million people, 3 million students currently in our primary and secondary education. We need all 3 million of them having some little bit of Eben. So I'm going to make my call here. I think I've made the case, yeah? The case is the future of work demands entrepreneurial capability. We've got a federal government, a state government, and even local governments that are trying to enable it. And one critical component is our labour force. That labour force must become entrepreneurial, and we must be strategic in the way that we deliver it. I'll open it up for questions. Thanks.
All right, guys, small room. Has anyone got any questions for the amazing Dr. Baden? One will stand up and yell them out, I think, but if you want to
echo everything you say. I echo everything you say, and for me, it doesn't depend on where you're from. I mean, if you take where I come from, Mackay, if they survey how many patents are registered and the most number of patents registered per area code in the country, it's 4740, it's Mackay. Half this country don't even know where we are.
No.
So we're in the middle of Queensland and we have the most patents registered in the whole country. So it doesn't make a difference where you're from. You can kick us from anywhere.
You can. So there's the message. So Dr. Sanjeev's point is, it doesn't matter where you're from. It shouldn't be because you're in a metro city or you go to a particular school that gives you that advantage. The entrepreneurial capability is everywhere, right? And so we need to be able to enable it everywhere. Thank you. Another question.
Yeah, lots of great questions, Baden. Are there any answers? How do we get that into... I just resigned as a primary school principal out of frustration, really, with
Yep.
to change things within the department. So how do we get that engagement?
So the good news is Gonski 2.0 just came out, right? And there's calls in there for independence of thought on delivery of education within schools up to year 10. And there's recommendations for support for teacher PD, right? And in my investigations into the curriculum that runs, there's not a big transition that needs to happen up to year 10 to enable these types of skills to go. There's business design subjects, there is existing curriculum that can be massaged while still delivering on what's required to deliver these skills. Different story year 11 and 12, we've got a real battle on our hands in those final years, but it's there. What's needed is best practice to be accessible and affordable and resourced for skills to implement. For principals of schools who want to embed it, for them to be able to say, you know what, here's the $20 boss program that comes from FYA, right? And here's the way it runs, here's our maps across curriculum, I can implement it this way, here's the training that goes to my teachers, and off we go. There's my first point. You get a bit of a chance of being able to run one program, you can then see how elements can go into other areas of your school, and the process happens. If I look at the way in which things happened at Bond University, we have a history of it. We were founded by an entrepreneur. If anywhere it was going to happen at Bond, right? But it required my dean to say yes to me when I said, I want to run University of Sydney's Incubate program on campus back in 2014. And 2 weeks later, I had the yes, and we ran a pilot with 6 students. Right, that was the first go, and now we have a university-wide program that touches every single student in every faculty of the program. It's only taken 4 years. Yeah? So the resources exist, there needs to be visibility to them and access to them.
My experience is when a project comes in from outside, yes, it runs and then it goes, and there's no ongoing...
Right, so there's the PD that's required. It needs to be enabling teachers to see how they can do what they already know in a slightly different way in order to be able to load on a different set of skills.
And that's competing with all sorts of other professional development.
It is. Yeah, I've got a battle up on my hands, but I'm up for it. Yes.
Absolutely. How can I help?
Yeah, please. Yeah, thank you.
I wanted to ask about universities and schools. What's the role of the vet sector? Because I think part of the accessibility of entrepreneurship and innovation is actually to make it available for everybody and not make it elitist with universities.
Agreed, yeah. So there's a significant role to be played in TAFE and in even individual vet providers. And there are already examples of vet providers who are delivering on entrepreneurial method, right? The entourage, so it already exists. Yeah.
It's about changing the narrative, because when you speak about the suite of education, the vet sector is never represented.
I would say, well, that's a point of view, but perhaps it is. And matter of fact, yeah, thank you.
Just for the room, could we explain that?
So it's vocational and educational training. So it sits as a complementary post-secondary school training platform. Yeah, thank you, vet training. when I look at my competitors, like if I'm trying to get students in to come to Bond University to hopefully get the best entrepreneurial education process, I don't actually look to other universities as my major competitors. My major competitors are B School and Entourage and Lisa Messenger, how she's gone with Torrens. Like, they're where my competitors are, and I need to be competing at that level. And yeah, I don't think vet are out of the equation at all. Yep.
You need to start a lot earlier, though.
I'm going to be a bit controversial here. I'm going to say that Brody is right here is a second semester student in the business school. He's about to enter this subject that we've designed called business model generation, and I'm going to say to you that, Brody, you shouldn't be studying that at university. That's something that should be about a year 10 subject. The problem is it's not delivered at year 10, and we get students that are coming into university where we need to deliver it to them. Yeah. And I would love to be able to be extending you 10 times further, but I can't because we're going to build those foundation skills and it hasn't happened yet. Yeah.
I mean, that's why I'm a mentor for Kodo Dojos. I start with kids that are 5 years old. I've already got nearly 20 kids below the age of 9 who create apps in the App Store.
So here's the awesome bit, right? If we have a mindset of optimism and abundance, we will take advantage of this and we'll identify Coder Dojo, we'll identify Geek Girls, we'll identify Steampunk Girls, we'll have a look at Startup Apprentice, we'll look at Club Kidpreneur, and we'll start to promote these. We'll say, look at all this great stuff that's happening, it just needs to be able to be embedded strategically. We good on time, James?
Yeah, we've got time for one more question.
So what's your advice for leaders of organisations to build their entrepreneurial workforce? I mean, it's obviously good to say let's just get someone in and educate them.
Yeah.
But what is your advice in really nurturing those entrepreneurial skills with the workforces of organisations?
Thank you. It's a great question, and I'm going to lean on some work that was delivered last year by Accenture. It was focused at the big end of town, but the premise is exactly the same. Their advice is to reskill from the top. Number one, for corporates who want to play in this space, you've got to reskill from the top. So the leaders themselves need to go through the Peak Persona program. They need to go on a Startup Catalyst mission and experience what's elsewhere. They need to change their thinking such that they understand and they're drinking the champagne or everyone says Kool-Aid, but I don't like Kool-Aid. So, right, that they are living and breathing the need, right? The second is to retrain and reskill the change makers within the organisation such that they're on board and are enabling it to go through. And the third is to redesign the way in which work is done, because so much of the way in which business happens these days is rooted in a creation, actually. It's called scientific management. It was created by Samuel Taylor like a little while ago, right? It was a way in which we decided to manage ourselves. They're called control-oriented management systems. That's the way things are at. We need to redesign that work. We need flexible work hours. We need flexible environments. We need the ability to be able to do work and targeted work in a quiet zone, and then be able to have spaces where ideas can mix and mingle. Tristan, where are you? Tristan, who hosts us over at Google in San Francisco, he was talking about the food line and Google providing food. Not only is it like a talent retention strategy, but it's a targeted strategy to enable Tristan to be waiting in line and talk to someone who's behind him and find out, well, what are you working on? What's happening here, So you need ways of being able to redesign the way in which work is done. So that's Accenture's advice. It's called Harnessing the Revolution, a little report. It's got 3 major strategies. It's a great way of being able to frame how you might be able to engage. And then you get in touch with people like Aaron Birkby and Eben Escott and find out how you can do it. Yep. All right, thank you so much. It's been wonderful.